Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. It's time for some new Cathay. We've been waiting for these for a while. You have to hang around another couple of days if you want to find out what's in the contents of this box. A video out on that very soon. But in today's video, I'm going to be talking you through and giving you my thoughts on the new Arcane journal, The Breaching of the Great Bastion. Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Counterattack Bases. They stock a wide range of counters, gaming aids and movement trays for multiple game systems and offer custom items to suit your club or even your podcast or YouTube channel. Make sure you check out their old world compatible range. It's expanding all the time. New ranges are being added soon. Look at these fantastic generals tokens to help those of you who are forgetful remember in-game effects and spells and things like that. And look at these old world legacy army token sets as well. Again, more of these are being added all the time and very nice they are. Check out the link in the video description. Now, if you've watched my previous Arcane Journal reviews, you'll know that I like to focus on the whole book, looking through the whole book and giving you my overall thoughts on it, not just focusing on the rules at the back. And that's equally fine, but you may have already seen those leaked in videos anyway. That tends to be the case. But I will go through the whole thing, giving you a bit of an overview on my thoughts on the lore and the presentation, and of course the new rules as well. As always, it's a full colour, very nicely presented, in my opinion, 48-page book with loads and loads of lore. Probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the book is lore, more background for Grand Cathay at home as well now, rather than just a little bit of the setting, the scene. So this really adds nicely into the previous publications. It gives a much more wider view of the overall Cathayan nation and what they're doing in the land of Warhammer, the old world. There's a narrative scenario in here as well that links to the lore that's in the book. And then also a brand new Grand Army list, which supersedes the previous ones in the previous book, tidies it all up and adds in the extra units which are being released at the same time as this book. And there's also another army of infamy in there, which essentially takes it up to the same place as all the other books, or the other armies now, a Grand Army list and 2 armies of infamy. Of course, then there are also the new profiles. So 3 new main units and a new character unit as well. And maybe you'll be pleased to know there's no more magical items in the book. There's not another 2 pages of magical items. They've got their lot now. But as we dive into the book, we've got a beautiful front cover. I really like that artwork. I love Warhammer art like that, especially with their big old battles. And we have the crest inside, and then we move into the lore. Now, as always, I'm not going to be reading the lore to you. This is an overview of the book, and I encourage you to buy the book and read the lore yourselves. I think it's very much an expansion of the lore we've seen in the previous Arcane journals and a little bit that's in the main rule book as well. But it definitely starts to fill in the gaps a little bit more. That it's not all harmony, that it's not all brilliance. It's definitely different to the Empire. There is disharmony in the realm, as you can see from the heading there, that we've definitely got more to learn about what's going on with the Monkey King. And it's quite clear that not all the dragons get on all the time. They don't always do what they should be, whether they're disappearing off and doing their own projects when they should be defending their lands. Not this sort of cleaner than clean, most perfect Cathay that maybe was displayed in the earlier book. There's emergence of a little bit more jeopardy and threat to the Empire and a little bit more disharmony, but there is that underlying sort of feeling that the peoples of Cathay are probably a little bit happier than the feeling of the peoples in the Empire, in the main part of the old world. I'm aware that some of the complaints around the Cathay lore is, as I've already mentioned, that they're just a little bit too good at everything. And I think it's started to question that a little bit. There is definitely disharmony in the realm around the rulers more. We still don't know much about what it's like in the daily life of people, but it does feel like they are better treated than they are in the main part of the old world, and which I think is fine. It's definitely a different political structure there. Their rulers have always been their rulers. They are descendants of dragons. They are half dragons themselves. So they have a lot more power than elector counts or barons and things like that. So I think there is a little bit difference there, maybe why they're a little bit more willing to look up at their rulers and accept them for who they are. Who knows? I also think just by looking at a book like this and seeing that they're willing to join the army and assuming that it's all everyone's super happy is also a little bit basic as well. I think we can expand the narratives and the laws in our own minds, and hopefully we'll see that more in future novels and future lore. I'm sure there are dirty and dangerous parts of Cathay just as much as there are in the Empire. One thing that really helps is we have a full timeline now. We saw these in army books throughout the years, and this is no different. Takes us right back to the formation of the known world, and then we have just lots and lots and lots. And I'm, again, not going to read it to you, but there's lots of elements of cultists and chaos cultists and Tzeentch clans and cults there. So he's, again, not all goody two-shoes stuff. Monkey King causing troubles time and time again. So I think there's enough there to show that the Cathay's got a little bit more flavour to it than maybe was originally thought. I really love this bit of artwork here. And the lore continues. We have the Land of the Dragons, and we have little explainers about regions now and cities. And it just fills it out a little bit more for me. It makes the lore a little bit deeper, a little bit more like the other factions in the game who have had their lore written over 30, 40 years or so. And I think that's really important. This is going to grow organically, and it's one of those things where we can really review this 5 years down the line. But I'm really pleased how much has been added here to really build this as a faction that seems a little bit more realistic and embedded in the Warhammer world now. The artwork is amazing and really evocative and quite dark. Some of it, as you can see here, is just really, really nice. And there's just lots and lots of information about the different areas of Cathay and the roads and where they lead. And the west is the grimmest place, where it's very, very close to the mountains of Morn and the Warpstone Desert. It just feels a lot more gritty. There's little information about how the elemental winds and the winds of magic, as we know it in the rest of the old world, are the same winds of magic. They're just interpreted differently by the magic users in Cathay. And the difference, I suppose, is the elves were the controllers of the magic, and they taught man in the west, in the old world. And the difference here is that the dragons learnt the magic and taught their humans, which the elves don't like. But it's essentially the same thing. They just give certain things different names, and it's all mixed into the elements of yang and yin. And again, in my mind, this is just more of an example of added detail, which for me really builds that sort of embedded flavour of the faction, rather than just being these super, super high trained army. And I'm not super into magic, but it's just really nice to see how the rest of the lore is integrated into the Cathayan lore, and it's the same thing, just interpreted in a different way, which you find with all the other factions as well. So we're about 20 pages in now, and we get a little bit more detail on the armies of the Celestial Dragon. Lots and lots of sort of nods to what's going on with the growth of the marauding chaos in the north, and the way that the army works in Grand Cathay, and more about it being an honour to serve when you're needed and called up to defend your lands. But there really is just quite a lot there, and a nod to mercenaries being used in armies for some regions, and the armies changing a little bit in flavour and makeup by region as well. And then as we move over to the next page, we've got some more colour spreads here, which I'd have loved in the first book. I think a lot of people, when they first wanted to paint their Jade Warriors, gives you some slightly different colour schemes here. Obviously the Jade is there because they are Jade Warriors, but there are some slightly different flavours for different cities and different areas. And then we really move into the now. We move into the north and the Great Bastion, and what it means to Cathay in terms of protection and how they defend it, and the methods that they use, and including allowing the marauders to breach in a certain place so they can draw them into their lands and then attack them there, sort of almost fooling them into thinking that they've won. It's very nicely written. I really enjoyed it. It flows quite well, and as I said, I think it just adds a little bit more grit and depth, feels a little bit more Warhammer than it did in the previous books. One thing that stood out to me, and it was just my perception, that I thought this book was going to be about Cathay being attacked while Miao Ying was away in the Empire, defending the Empire and helping the Empire. But most of the battle that's talked about is
prior to that. It's a breach before that. She's there in the battle, and it's after that point that she realizes that the world's in peril because of these growing chaos attacks, and notice more and more black armored chaos warriors, amongst the marauding tribes, and the tribes are getting bigger and attacking more often. And I think that adds a little bit more realism maybe to why she's gone over to the Empire. They're not just turned up there because she thinks it's a good thing to do. It just adds more to that lore that was already there. It makes you feel a little bit more sort of, we're all in peril, I need to get over there and make sure that they're dealing with it in the right way, otherwise we're not going to survive. And that was kind of the underlying thing before, but I think that reinforces it more. As always in these books, we get these nice campaign maps, and we see the different gates there, and we can see the allowed planned incursion there and the battle. And then we move on to the Battle of Nanli, which is one of them that's sort of mentioned in that narrative run up to this, and we always see this in these books. That tends to be the way they fall, and you get to replay a battle, and it's a 2,000 points example here. Obviously you can change and do what you want with it, but it's a 2,000 points aside. Warriors of Chaos Grand Army against a Warriors of Wind and Field Army of Infamy, and we'll come to that later when we get to the rule section. And it's a pretty straightforward scenario, pitch battle style, with objectives down the middle, which you get points each turn for, and then points at the end of the battle as well. And you get an extra boost as well from your Cathayan Sentinels, giving you rerolls and with failed panic tests, etc, etc. But nice and thematic, but also a scenario that you could use and just play with any two armies. And then we have this really stunning sort of full colour spread. I absolutely love these. A little peek behind the curtain here. I will usually receive a PDF review version a little bit ahead of the actual book arriving, and it's all watermarked, and the resolution is just slightly off. So you can see the picture, it looks great, but you can't really get all the detail until you get the real book in your hands. So again, anyone who's wondering whether to go out and buy it, I think it's worth it just for some of these pictures alone, if you like that kind of thing. But those buildings look absolutely fantastic. I'd love to know whether they're scratch built, whether there'll be future kits. I imagine they're scratch built, but wouldn't it be amazing to see some of these? They're not turning up in Warhammer World Museum as yet. Hopefully they will as part of a display at some point, because it would be incredible to see some of this awesome studio terrain. I've had a really good look around in the picture. I haven't spotted anything that's not in the book. Someone else might spot something that I haven't. The building over in the corner there looks like maybe some of the cannon barrels are used for some of that. I'm not so sure, but love it. Super cool. And then, of course, you've got all of the new units that are in this book, and as part of that box set that I showed you, and I've been enjoying painting the bits that I've had time to paint a little bit, and they will be coming up in painting videos very soon. If you're watching this a few months down the line, those videos are probably already there, so do check those out on the channel. But just some lovely shots of the new miniatures. I'm a real fan of the peasants. They just look absolutely fantastic. And this beautiful shot of the now not so broken balloon. So we're now at the business end of the book for many people, the last 10 pages or so. There's still lore in this as well, so it's not 10 pages of pure rules. It really is just 2 army lists in there and the 4 new profiles. There's not an awful lot on top of that, but I like what's here, so let's have a look at it. As usual, we have a little bit of lore as an introduction to the army list, which again is always nice, adding a little bit more detail, adding a little bit more flavour to Grand Cathay in the grand scheme of the Warhammer factions and armies. And we have our updated Grand Army list, and this is replacing the old Grand Army list that was in the Armies of Grand Cathay book. And it's not just the new units that have been added, there are other changes as well. In terms of allies and mercenaries, that's all the same, so we can ignore that, but there are a few subtle changes. So starting with characters, up to 50% of your army's total points value, as all the other armies, etc, etc. Still 1 dragon per 1,000 points. Most of the other things are the same. However, Gate Master has been added along with the new Supreme Astromancer as a 0 to 1 per 1,000 points. That Gate Master before was unrestricted. And then the next line is Shigengan, Gatekeepers and Strategists and Astromancer. So obviously you got your Astromancer being added in there as a normal character. That's where Gate Master sat before. So there's a new limit on Gate Masters, as well as the new characters being added, the Lord and the standard hero level Astromancers. Core, again, at least 25% of your army, which is all standard. And then Jade Warriors and Peasant Levy. So Peasant Levy has been added there to core. And then something new. So previously you could have 1 unit of Jade Lancers per 1,000 points. Now you can only have 1 unit of Jade Lancers if your general is a gate master or a gatekeeper, and that's quite a different restriction. I don't think many people are taking gate masters or gatekeepers as their general in larger point games, so that might see a reduction in some Jade Lancers being used in core there. Nice little subtle change. Yet more changes in special. We've obviously got the additions in there now. We have the Crane Gunner teams and Iron Hail Gunners are in there. No restrictions on numbers of them, along with Jade Lancers, of course. But the thing that most people will be spotting there is 0 to 2 war machines from the following list per 1,000 points. And previously it was 0 to 3 per 1,000 points. So we're reducing the total of cannons that you could have had from 6 down to 4 in a 2,000 point army, and I think that makes a big difference as well. Don't get me wrong, 4's still a lot because they are very good, but that is a really significant change as well. So I think that's pretty cool to see, just some of the good bits being toned down or restricted a little bit in this list. And then the rules around using a sentinel or a lantern as a special choice based on who your general is, being a Shigengan or magistrate strategist, is the same as before. And then rare remains exactly the same as before as well. So it's Sky Lanterns and Cathane Sentinels in rare at 25%. As I said, there were a couple more changes there than just the new units being added in. Positive changes, I think, nothing groundbreaking. The FAQ did far more to restrict Cathay, but again, a couple of subtle things there that might just take down certain builds a little bit as well. Moving on to Warriors of Wind and Field, and we have that nice little bit of lore that leads into the new Army of Infamy. Just get a little bit more information about how the levies of regular peasant troops are formed and about how they're compelled to do so, but it seems like they want to do so in the way the law is provided here, and about how they're equipped and what kind of things, and the fitter ones will maybe be fighting, and the lesser so, the less strong ones will be given bows. It's all quite basic stuff, but all nice, gives you a little bit more flavour, and you obviously get a nice little colour plate there of a Cathayan peasant levy. I remember there were these red coat on and stuff. Again, like I said, I really love these miniatures. Grand Cathay Warriors of Wind and Field, the new Army of Infamy, which now joins the Jade Fleet and the Grand Army list. So it's just like all of the other factions out there, as I've said. And this is the makeup. So characters up to 50% as normal, so no changes there. 0 to 1 Magistrate, Gatekeeper or Supreme Astromancer per 1,000 points. And then for your other characters, Shigengan, Gatekeepers, Strategists and Astromancers. Core, very much a standard, at least 25%, and you have 1+ unit of levies, so you must have a unit of levy. Iron Hail Gunners, and then 0 to 1 unit of Jade Warriors per 1,000 points may be taken as a core choice, so you can get your Jade Warriors in there. Special, up to 50% of your army's total points value, so that's all pretty standard. But I think this is really gets interesting. There's a lot here fighting for the 1,000 points that are in a standard 2,000 point list. If you're playing at that level, Jade Warriors, you can take them, more of them if you wanted to. Again, if you're looking for a second unit there, maybe you'd be looking at the Grand Army list. But Crane Gunner teams, so the other new shooting unit, they find themselves in special, and Sky Lanterns, so not just limited to one. If you've got a Gate Master or Gatekeeper in your army, like the Grand Army list, you can have Sky Lanterns, and that could get interesting. It'll be interesting to see what people's thoughts are there. Is this where we're going to see lantern spam? Are they weak enough now that that's not going to be a problem? I would like to think I play differently. I play quite casually at times, and I'd want to get all the different units in, so I'd never have too many of them. But you'll see that they're quite important to the theme of this army when we get on to the special rules, so that'll be interesting. Let me know your thoughts below. 0 to 2 war machines, so the same restriction as we saw in the Grand Army list, and then 0 to 1 unit of Jade Lancers as well if you wanted to get your Jade Lancers in there. But your points are going to be spent on your artillery there. I think you're going to want to get a couple of pieces of artillery with all those sort of troops there, very basic level troops, as we'll see when we get onto their profiles. And then it's about Crane Gunner teams, whether you want them in there and whether you're fighting for points for your Sky Lanterns as well, and again, how many you are getting in. And then rare up to 25%, and you have Jade Lancers there and Sentinels. So Sentinels are still there in rare, but instead of Lanterns you have Jade Lancers there. So that's really interesting. It's a thematic choice, as we'll see as we move over to the special rules. But before we do that, Mercenaries up to 20% of your army's points value. So this is different here. You haven't got that full list of Mercenaries before, including Badlands Ogres. So you can have your Badlands Ogres in there, which should be really, really fun, I imagine. And giving you that thematic link of the ogres in that geographical region there, and the fact that some of them work in Cathay, some of them attack Cathay, and you read about that in the lore, and it's fun to have that sort of thematic link there as well. I think we'll see some really, really cool conversions, and it'd be lovely to see a unit of Cathayan ogres that are in the same styling as the ones that are in the gun teams. It would be really, really amazing if they're able to do that. Standard is normal, and then you've got your magic items from the common or the Grand Cathay magic items in the other books as well. So on to the important part, or so often the important part that really adds to the theme and gives you the answer to why you're allowed to take the Sky Lanterns there in specials. To be the Warriors of Wind and Field special rules. And the first one is the big one there, the Discipline of the Dragon. Now, once per game during the command sub-phase on your turn, unless it is engaged in combat, each Sky Lantern in your army may attempt to enact one of the following grand strategies by making a leadership test. If this test is passed, until your next turn, start of turn subphase, all friendly Cathayan units that are currently within 12 inches of the Sky Lantern are affected by the chosen grand strategy. And we have Defense of the Dragon. Whilst this grand strategy is in effect, affected units gain the Stubborn special rule. If an affected unit is already stubborn, it becomes unbreakable instead. Strength of the Everlasting Empire. Whilst this grand strategy is in effect, affected units whose troop type is infantry or cavalry cannot be wounded by a roll to wound of 2 regardless of the attacker's strength. So that takes away your strength 5 and up, I believe. So you're basically wounding on the same strength as a strength 4 attack, which is really quite cool. Fury of the Falling Blade. Whilst this grand strategy is in effect, affected units whose troop type is regular infantry gain a +1 modifier to their movement characteristics and may reroll charge, flee or pursuit rolls. Warriors of the Field. Units of Peasant Levy do not become disrupted by difficult or dangerous terrain. In addition, 0 to 1 unit of Peasant Levy per 1,000 points may have the Move Through Cover special rule for 20 points. Warriors of the Land. When a unit of Peasant Levy falls back in good order, it may choose which dice to discard when making its flee roll, rather than automatically discarding the lowest result. And finally, Warriors of the Wind. 0 to 1 unit of Peasant Levy per 1,000 points may have the Reserve Move and Scouts special rules for 2 points per model. Thematically, I really, really love that, and I think the special rules back it up really well. And you may have heard me bumbling on about why I didn't realise balloons were going to be awful when they were first released, because I saw them as, wow, you can put your general in there and they're commanding the armies. I love this. It's what a cool idea. And I didn't realise that people would be zooming around the table, dropping bombs everywhere. And some of that's been reduced now and solved by limiting the number of bombing runs to 1 in that latest FAQ. So I think that is key now. I'm not a competitive player at all, so it'll be interesting to see what those more competitively minded will think of this list and whether the use of balloons can be abused now, because thematically I love it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I love the idea that you maybe got 3 balloons in your army, buffing your units on the ground, doing what the law says. You know, one maybe your general, maybe a couple of other balloons in support, firing your guns and doing your 1 bombing run, giving your peasant, and they are weak, as we'll see in a moment, giving your peasants some buffs. I love it, and I love the other special rules as well, the Move Through Cover and all those little bits you have to pay extras for, but they're there. I love the theme around it. I love the look of those peasant miniatures. So it's all going to be about, for me, the balance of those balloons and whether this brings too many balloons into the game or makes the buffs too strong. I'm really, really interested to hear what you think in the comments. Theme-wise, I think it's great. I hope it's not too much. I hope it's just right. But yeah, let me know in the comments. So nearly at the end of the book now, let's finish off with those new profiles. We have Astromancers of the Celestial Court. You have a Supreme Astromancer and an Astromancer. There's your Lord level and your standard. 125 points for start for your base level for your Supreme, and 65 points for your other. They're human stats, as you can imagine. Leadership 8, 2 attacks for the Supreme. So very much human wizard level stuff there from an Empire army, very comparable. Just like other factions, they start as level 3 or level 1, depending on whether you're taking the Lord level character or not. And every Astromancer in the Celestial Court knows spells from one of the following laws of magic: battle magic, elementalism, high magic, and illusion. They must choose between the law of Yang and the law of Yin, and they may be mounted on a horse for 16 points. It's the Cathayan horse with the profile there below. A Supreme Astromancer may upgrade to a level 4, as you can expect, and may purchase magical items up to 100 points. Again, all really standard stuff. The same with the standard Astromancer, level 2 for 30 points, and 50 points of magical stuff. The special rules are magical attacks, magical resistance -1, and mastery of the elemental winds. No surprises there whatsoever. Peasant levy. Now these guys really are peasants. They're weaker than sort of Empire militia. Only 4 points a pop, and they're only weapon skill 2, leadership 5 there. Your champion level gets a pip extra leadership and 1 more attack for 8 points in the unit, but that's very much standard stuff. They can have long spears, and we'll see the rules for those in a moment, or war bows. You can choose, they're free, and the entire unit can take light armor. There's no shields there either, so it's whether you want to take that light armor for potentially getting a 6-up save for maybe missile fire, but they're pretty weak, and probably shows you more why they're sort of the synergies with those lanterns there to buff them and make them better. You can take full command if you want to. The points are all there, and you can replace close order with skirmishes, which I think will be really useful for your bowmen if you want to take them that way as well. 0 to 1 unit per 1,000 points may have the ambushes special rule for 1 point as well, so you can build that sort of ambushing skirmisher unit should you wish to. And they do have ballistic skill of 3, so they are better at shooting than they are at poking with their spears. However, they do have long spears, strength is normal, fighting extra rank like normal spears, but strike first. So if you are charging them, they get to strike first, which is pretty cool. That gives them something over the usual thrusting spears that you see used in some of the other armies. Next up, we have the Crane Gunner teams. Slightly better stats, so 16 points a model as well. So these aren't cheap at all. They're weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, standard human all the way through. They do have 2 attacks, but I'm guessing the team is 2 miniatures on a base, and that'll be why that's there. And leadership of 7, so standard good human troops rather than the bad ones. 25 by 50 base, so the 2 miniatures mounted, as I said, and unit size of 3 to 8, so unusual sizings there. And they got their hand weapons, their crane guns, light armor, and their tower shields. Options: 0 to 1 unit per 1,000 points may have the ambusher special rule for 1 point per model, and have the reserve move special rule for 2 points per model. Special rules: open order. Tower shields. A tower shield is a shield that improves the wielder's armor value by 3 rather than the usual 1 against attacks made by enemy models that lie within the wielder's front arc. However, a towered shield offers no protection to its wielder if attacks made by the enemy models that lie in the flank or rear arcs, which makes sense. And then the crane gun, it's exactly the same as the rules that for the Sky Lantern stat line, so it's range 36, strength 6, -2 AP, armor bane 2, cumbersome, and it's move or shoot. So that's the only rule that's added extra. It's obviously in the balloon, they're already in a balloon. The shooting stat line and the survivability in that front arc make them look pretty good. I would say for 16 points they aren't cheap at all either though, and it'll be interesting to see how much we see them. I'm going to have them because they're cool. The way I write army list is very much a little bit of everything, so I'll be really interested to see what the competitive scene makes of them and whether they get a lot of table time. Iron Hail Gunners, so the same stat line as the Crane Gunners in terms of the humans, but they also have a marksman as well, which has a pip extra ballistic skill for that champion style unit for an extra 6 points. Unit size is 4 to 12. It's nice to see some sort of top end restrictions on some units. We didn't see that quite as much in the earlier armies. I'd like to see more of that because I think it offers a little bit of restraint and control over what people take, and rather than spamming crazy large unit sizes. So I do like that kind of stuff. I know it's very unique small units in this example, so maybe not the best example of it, but I like to see more of it. Options: the entire unit may take gunpowder bombs at 2 points per model, and any unit may upgrade one model to a marksman champion essentially for 6 points. The special rules are open, order and skirmishes, which that's pretty cool, having these shooting around the table. And then as far as I'm aware, the iron hail gun and the gunpowder bombs, the rules haven't changed from the original Armies of Grand Cathay journal, where they can be crew inside a balloon. So the shot rules are the same here as well. So range 12, strength 3, -1 AP, move and shoot, and multiple shots for the iron hail gun. And then range 9, strength 3, armor bane 1, move and shoot, quick shot for the gunpowder bombs. Not really many surprises there, because we knew the stat lines of those guns and things from the lantern before. You've got a good long-ranged shooting option, and with the iron hail gun as more of a shorter range defensive option, maybe a smaller units here and there, skirmishing, protecting war machines, flanks, that kind of thing. The final page is the Grand Cathay special rules, and this is mostly a reprint from the Armies of Grand Cathay Arcane journal, and there's a slight change that I've spotted. If I've missed anything, put it in the comments below, but this needs to be reprinted obviously because we've got a new Grand Army list in this book. So Celestial Forged Armour, I believe, is exactly the same as it has been up till now. Mastery of the Elemental Winds works the same way as well, in terms of what it does overall, but in terms of how you roll it, we'll see that's a slight change in a moment. And then the Will of Dragons, I think, is exactly the same as well. But then we actually move on to the elemental winds, and as far as I can tell, the winds of Yang and the winds of Yin work the same way. However, the little table that you have to roll is different. You now have the addition of 1 to 2. The winds grow still and nothing happens. That's new. Beforehand, I believe it was 1 to 3, and the winds of Yang blow strongest, and then 4+ the winds of Yin blow stronger. So there's an added element there that you don't get any bonus at all, which I like this. Again, very, very minor little debuff there, but it's just another little thing, a little bit more of control, bringing that overall power level where everything seemed really, really good with Cathay, just being chipped away a little bit, and it feels just a sudden change like that is always welcome. And that's that. That is the whole book. Really like it. I love the lore in it. I repeat what I said earlier. I think it adds an awful lot more depth. Yes, your peasants are a lot happier than they are in Britannia or the Empire. It doesn't feel quite as sort of cheesy maybe as you could be claimed it was in some of the earlier books. Their whole society is completely different, but it's not all amazing. They aren't the best thing ever. Their troops aren't all amazing. The normal peasants are normal peasants. They are in a happier society, but there's still bad things going on. And when you read through that timeline and some of the other bits, there has definitely been problems with chaos, with cults, Tzeentch cults within the Cathayan Empire, and it doesn't say they've all completely gone. So that idea that Cathay's all perfect is gone now. As much as the overall riding story of them is that they are a very good army and that the people is happy to defend their country, there's definitely underlying cracks there that you could explore if you like that kind of thing in your armies. And hopefully we'll see more lore and more novels in the future that maybe we can see that the cities sometimes have their darker sides and darker elements, because they definitely do. There's enough depth in here now that shows that the whole land of Cathay has got more to it than just this heroic kind of, we're great, we're going over to the Empire to solve their problems for them as well. It feels like it's a little bit more perilous for them as well, and also more underlying, especially the dragons not all getting on, problems with the Monkey King, which I'm sure we'll see something more in the future. So there are problems at home, disharmony, not all the dragons do what they should be doing, not protecting their lands, and there's loads of little nuggets of stuff like that in the lore. So if you like your lore, I think it really improves it and really rounds it out and makes it feel more Warhammer-ish and tied more in. It's not perfect there yet. I want to know even more about the darker side of Cathay, but maybe that, as I said, that'll come out in roleplay games or in novels or something like that. In terms of the rules and the army lists, I love the new peasants. I think they're really fun. I hope that it's balanced well, that their weakness and the buffs they have using the lanterns, that doesn't mean that the lanterns dominate the games too much and people have too many lanterns. I'd hate to see, and this may well happen, that you don't have units of peasants and you've just got smaller skirmish units of gunners and bowmen, peasant bowmen, buffing those buy the lanterns, 2 mini lanterns. That probably is the way it's going to go, isn't it? Let me know what you think if you're a competitive player and you're looking at that list now and thinking, this is what I would do. So I find it really interesting. I will definitely be using my new miniatures to build a peasant style list. Probably have some J Warriors in there as well, but much more of a inventory based army, because that's just kind of Warhammer I like to play. Doesn't work for everyone, and I know if you're going to events, you might come up with things that you don't want to play against as well. So I get it all. Balance is different for different people, but I'll be really interested to see what people think of it. But in terms of an overall publication, it's really nicely presented. I didn't spot any glaring errors in this one, missing lines or rules and stuff. There may be that I've missed. I couldn't see any problems there at all. I love the lore and I love the theme of the new army list, and I think the Grand Army is much more balanced now, not just with the FAQ but with those few changes that we've seen to the rules in this as well. A few more little minor debuffs on top of the FAQ as well is a good thing. So it's whether this new army of infamy opens up 2 new balloons, but maybe balloons are fine now. But as a theme, those balloons generaling their peasant levies is such a beautiful idea. Will look fantastic on the table. Hopefully it plays nicely, and we will see, no doubt, in the coming months. So thank you, Games Workshop, very much for sending this and allowing me to have a little look at it earlier. And thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please do give it a like, drop your comments below. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews like this, and for the videos, the painting videos and hobby videos that I've got planned for those new miniatures as well, because they will be coming up very, very soon, hot on the heels of this video. If you have enjoyed the video, please do give it a like, drop a comment below, and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. There will be lots more content and reviews like this, along with all the painting content that I have on the channel as well. There's lots of that coming up soon, so if you're subscribed, hopefully you won't miss the contents of that new box, my thoughts on those new miniatures and how I go about painting, which is more of what I do on the channel than this kind of stuff. If you'd like to support me and the channel even more, please do go and check the link in my video description for my Patreon. It really is the very best way of supporting me, and thank you to all my existing patrons for all the support that you give me. I really couldn't do this without you and your financial support. Also check out the channel sponsor, Counterattack Bases. They make loads of game aids, including for Warhammer the Old World, some really cool little counters and things, and they make custom dice as well. But thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.